The orbital station floated like a glass dagger in space, quiet and shining. It was called Seraphes I, a neutral zone between the Terran Union and the Zalthian Empire. Talks were happening here. But peace was a fragile thing. Captain Elias. Ward stood at attention near the docking bay, his body covered in sleek black armor. His face was hidden behind a silver visor. He didn't move, didn't speak. Like a statue made for war. The station guards gave him space, even among humans. Elias had a reputation. He was here for one reason: protect the alien princess. Princess Kalari of the Zalthian Empire was not what Elias expected. She wasn't tall or frightening. She didn't wear a crown or walk with soldiers. She stepped down from her ship in a long robe that shimmered like moonlight. Her skin was pale blue, and her silver eyes had no pupils, just glowing light that looked through everything. Her guards stopped, but she walked straight toward Elias. "You are the human soldier?" she asked, her voice calm and clear. "Yes," Elias replied. His voice came out from the speakers in his helmet, deep, filtered, emotionless. "I ask for you specifically," Kalari said. "You were on the front lines during the siege of Thornspire. You refused to surrender even when your unit was destroyed." "I follow orders," he said. She smiled a little. "I wonder if that's true." He didn't answer. Kalari turned and walked down the corridor. "Come, you are my escort now." Elias followed, his boots silent on the polished floors. The station's halls were wide and bright, with metal walls lined with white light strips. Humans and Zalthians moved through, avoiding eye contact. Everyone was nervous. Peace was a dream, not yet real. Kyler's private chamber was at the top of a tower made of transparent alloy. Stars glittered on all sides. It felt more like a dream than a room. She sat on a chair shaped like a flower and looked at Elias, who stood near the door, still and silent. "Do you ever remove your armor?" she asked suddenly. "No, not even to rest. I don't rest. I recharge." She laughed softly. "A machine in human skin." "I'm human," he said flatly. Kylar tilted her head. "Then why do you hide it so well?" He didn't answer. Silence grew between them, but she didn't seem uncomfortable. She was studying him like a scientist watching something strange. "Humans are strange," she said finally. "You burn brighter than any species I've known. So loud, in your mind so full of chaos, and yet there's something beautiful about it. You speak like you've studied us. I've touched human minds before, during battle. Most were filled with fear, anger, or despair. But yours..." She paused. "Yours was different." Elias narrowed his eyes behind his visor. "You tried to read my mind? Only a glimpse. Enough to know you weren't like the others. It's not an excuse." "No," she said softly. "It's not." Later that day, Kylari insisted on walking the outer deck, a transparent bridge connecting two towers of the station. Below them, the curve of Elthora glowed with blue oceans and green countenance. Elias walked a step behind her, always watching. Every Zalthian and Terran who passed gave them strange looks to symbols of war, pretending to be allies. Kylari looked out at the stars. "My people think your kind are dangerous. Wild animals with tools? They're not wrong, but I think there's more. What do you feel when you look at the stars?" Elias hesitated. No one ever asked him things like this. But she waited for an answer. "I see places where we've bled. Places we've lost? Nothing more?" "Duty," he said. "Sacrifice." She looked disappointed. "I see hope," she said. "Even after all the death, I see the possibility of something better." Elias didn't reply. That night, he stood. Outside her chamber as usual, lights dimmed, the station quieted. But Kalari called him in. "I can't sleep," she said. "Too many voices in this place. Too many thoughts." "Then meditate," Elias said. "I'm trying." But human minds screamed too loud. He said nothing. She looked at him again. "Do you dream?" she asked. "I don't remember. Will you sit with me?" He hesitated, then sat down, still fully armored. Across the room from her, Tell me, she said, what made you become a soldier? Earth was dying, Elias said. I joined to help build something new, but you destroy. I destroy what threatens us, even peace. If peace is real, I protect it, and if it's not, I don't believe in peace. That depends on lies. Kalari stared at him for a long moment. You believe in truth? I believe in doing what must be done. She stood, walking closer. Then she reached out and touched the smooth black armor on his chest. You wear? This like a shell, but it's not who you are. He didn't move. She whispered, Take off your armor. Elias looked at her through the silver visor. Slowly he reached up and removed the helmet. For the first time, Kailari saw his face. It was not what she expected. No monster, no machine. Just a man, tired, scarred. With hard eyes and a jaw clenched from years of pain, she stepped back, breath caught. You're human, she said, as if the word now meant something else. Elias placed the helmet at his side. Still think we're animals? No, she whispered. You're something much harder to define. As the stars turned slowly outside the glass walls, the human and the alien princess sat in silence, one without armor, the other without fear. The real war, they both knew, had just begun, not between empires, but between what had been and what could be. Peace was not impossible, but it would require more than treaties. It would require trust, and maybe something more. The air was quiet inside the transport ship, but tension filled the space like thick smoke. Princess Kailari sat near the window, her silver eyes watching the planet Elthora below. Its green lands and blue ocean shimmered like a jewel.
Once.
Humans and Zalthians fought over it. Now, it was a symbol of peace. But peace was still fragile. Elias Ward sat across from her, helmet back on, armor locked tight. His body was still, but inside he was alert. He didn't trust this mission. Kailari had requested a trip down to Elthora's surface. She said she wanted to see the old battlefield now, a memorial garden. Elias had warned her it was risky. She said peace must start with courage. He didn't argue. But now his hand rested close to his sidearm. Only one pilot flew the shuttle. No guards. Just him, her, and open sky. The ship landed near the old ruins of Fort Halrose. The battle that took place here 5 years ago had left scars in the land. Craters still dotted the fields, but now wildflowers grew inside them. Tall white trees stood where burned machines once lay. The sky above was soft and blue. Kailari stepped outside and closed her eyes. I remember the pain in the air, she said. So many minds screaming. The Zalthian mind felt it all. Elias scanned the area. Stay close. She nodded, walking slowly across the field. Do you remember this place? I was here, he said. My unit held the ridge. We lost 37 soldiers in one night. She looked at him. I lost 2 brothers here. Their eyes met. No words passed, but something changed. Enemies once. Now, they stood on shared ground. They reached a white stone monument at the center of the field. Names from both species were carved into the stone, Terran and Zalthian alike. Kailari touched the stone. Her eyes glowed softly. This could have been the end of everything, she said. But maybe it's the start of something else. Elias nodded slowly. Only if we protect it. Then something changed. Elias heard a soft crack in the air. Not a bird. It's not a breeze. A sound he knew far too well. A sniper's coil charging. He moved fast, grabbed. Kailarian dropped to the ground behind the monument. A blast of plasma hit the stone where she'd been standing. She gasped. What was that? Sniper. High power? Professional? Zalthian? No, that wasn't our tech. That's Velatri. Kalari's eyes widened. The Velatri. But they're only rumors. It's not anymore. The Velatri were a splinter group fanatics who believed both the Terran Union and the Zalthian Empire had become soft. They hated peace, hated diplomacy. Now they were here. Elias peeked around the stone. For attackers were moving in, dressed in dark gray armor. Fast, quiet, well-trained. He pulled his rifle and handed a small stun pistol to Kailari. "I've never used one of these," she said. "Point and squeeze. Try not to die." Kailari gave him a look. "You're not funny." He smirked behind his helmet. "Didn't say I was." Blasts flew across the garden.
Ow.
Trees burned. Flowers turned to ash. The quiet field of peace became a battlefield again. Elias moved like a ghost fast, controlled, deadly. He dropped one attacker with a shot to the chest, another with a blast to the head. Kailari took cover behind a stone wall.
Ow.
Her hands shook. But she managed to fire a stun pulse that knocked down a third attacker. The last one charged her. She screamed, but Elias was there. He tackled the attacker, knocked his weapon away, and delivered a blow to the helmet that shattered the visor. The attacker fell, unmoving. Kailari stared at Elias, breathing hard, her eyes wide. "You're bleeding," she said. Elias looked down. His armor was cracked, and a deep cut ran along his arm. Blood dripped slowly. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," she said, touching his shoulder. "You could have died." "I've died before," he said quietly. "Just didn't stay dead." They found shelter in a half-buried ruin nearby. Elias used a small medkit to seal the wound. Kailari sat beside him, silent. Finally she spoke. "They weren't after me," she said. Elias looked at her. "What do you mean? They were trying to kill both of us, make it look like one side. Attacked the other, break the peace, start a war." Elias nodded. "Classic false flag. I didn't think they were real," she whispered. "They are. And they're good." Elias leaned back against the wall. His visor was cracked. He pulled off his helmet, revealing a bruised face and tired eyes. Kailari looked at him. Slowly, she reached out and touched the side of his face. "You protected me." "I had to?" "No," she said. "You chose to." He sat in silence again. Then she whispered, "Take off your armor." He blinked. "What?" "I want to." See what the human underneath?" He hesitated, and slowly he reached down and unlocked the chest plate. The armor hissed as it released pressure. Piece by piece, he removed it, the chest, the shoulder guards. The arms underneath was a black undersuit, torn and soaked with blood. His skin was scarred. A long burn ran from his neck to his collarbone. Old injuries. He looked like someone who had lived 100 lives in one body. Kailari touched one of the scars gently. "What happened here?" "Grenade. First year of the war. This one. Sniper. In this explosion. My fault." She looked into his eyes. "You carry all this and still stand?" Looked back at her. "So do you." Gaze softened. "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." Outside, the sun began to set. The smoke cleared. Birds returned to the ruined field. The peace was not fully broken. Elias spoke again. "We need to report this. Let both sides know the Velatri are real." Kailari nodded. "And we need to do it together. They tried to split us. We'll show them they failed." Elias reached for his helmet, but paused. Kailari smiled. "You don't need to put it back on. I'm a soldier. You're a human." They stood together, armor and robe, scars and strength. Whatever was coming next, they would face it side by side, not just as protector and royal, but as two souls who had seen each other clearly for the first time. The small escape pod shook as it rose through Eltharus sky. Clouds rushed past the window. Stars above looked far away, silent witnesses to everything below. Inside the pod, Princess Kailari sat beside Captain Elias Ward. He had removed most of his armor. His black undersuit was torn and soaked in blood. Kailari had wrapped a silver cloth around his arm, trying to stop the bleeding. "Still alive?" she asked softly. Elias gave her a tired nod. "Barely. You shouldn't have fought like that. You're not made of steel." "I used to think I was." She smiled, just a little. The pod beeped as it approached the orbital station. They had sent an emergency signal before launch. Someone would be waiting. But neither of them spoke for a long time. There was too much to think about. After they docked, a medical team came to take Elias. He waved them off. I'm fine, he said. I've had worse. Captain, one medic warned, you need rest. Deep muscle damage, plasma burns. I said I'm fine. Kylar stepped in. Let him be. He has more strength than he knows. Elias gave her a look. It was hard to read, but it wasn't cold. They returned to Kylar's quarters, which now felt smaller than before. Stars outside the glass walls didn't shine as brightly. Or maybe they had both changed. Kylari sat across from Elias. Tell me something, she said, and tell me the truth. I'll try. When you fight, what do you feel? Is it hate, fear, anger? It was quiet for a moment. None of that, he said. I feel sharp, clear, like a machine made for one task. I stopped being human. That's terrible. It's how I survive. But when you saved me, when you stood between me and that sniper, you weren't a machine. No, he said, looking down at his hands. That was something else. She leaned forward. What was it? He looked up. Their eyes met. It was a choice, he said. Not an order, not a mission. Just me. There was a long silence. Then Kylari stood and walked to a small table. She picked up a glowing crystal, a device used for psychic focus. You said once you don't rest, she said, that you recharge. But even machines have limits. I'll rest when it's over. What if it's never over? Elias didn't answer. She sat beside him now, the crystal glowing between them. I want to show you something, she said. But I need your permission to read my mind. Oh, to connect. Just for a moment. Not to control. Only to understand. He hesitated. Is it safe? For your body? Yes. For your mind. Maybe not, he nodded slowly. Do it. Kylari closed her eyes and touched his temple with 2 fingers. Suddenly, her mind slipped into his and she gasped. It was not like other human minds she had touched before. Those were loud, wild, and burning. But Elias's mind was something else. It was a fortress. She saw walls made of steel and fire, rooms filled with pain, memories locked behind doors, battles, screams, lost friends, his childhood, his training, his first kill, his last goodbye, and deep inside, hidden under layers of silence, a boy who had once believed in hope. Kylari pulled back, tears in her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. You carry so much. Elias looked away. That's why I wear the armor. She reached out and took his hand. But now I've seen you without it, and you're stronger than anyone I've ever known. The next morning, news spread through the station. Both human and Zalthian leaders had received a message from the Velatri. A recording showed masked Velatri warriors claiming responsibility for the attack on Elthara. They said peace was weakness, that war would make both species strong again. The message ended with a warning. Next time, there will be no survivors. Panic spread, negotiations were frozen, trust shattered. Some humans blamed the Zalthians. Some Zalthians blamed the humans. Kylari stood before her mirror, breathing slowly. Her silver robes were perfect, her face calm, but her mind was heavy. She turned as Elias entered, back in full armor again. They're breaking everything, she said. All we worked for, and we don't let them. She looked at him. What do? We hit back. Not with war, with truth. They stepped into the council chamber together. Dozens of leaders sat around a giant ring, humans on one side, Zalthians on the other. Whispers filled the air. No one expected them to arrive together. Kylari stepped forward. I was there when the Velatri attacked, she said, her voice steady. I saw what they tried to do. They wanted to kill me and Captain Ward. Then they would blame each other, and peace would die. A human general stood. You expect us to trust your word? Elias stepped forward. Then trust mine. He threw a small data chip onto the table. Helmet cam footage. Full record of the attack. DNA scans from Velatri bodies. You want proof? You have it. Silence, then murmurs. Then one Zalthian leader stood. Why would a human risk his life? For our Princess Kylari spoke quietly, because he saw me as more than an enemy, and I saw him as more than a soldier. Elias looked around the room. We're not machines. We don't have to keep making the same mistakes. Later, back in her room, Kailari stood with Elias again. You were brave, she said. You were braver. You think this will be enough? Maybe not, he said. Shh, but it's a start. She reached out and touched his chest plate. You're back in armor. He nodded. It's who I am. Now I know who's inside. He smiled. Just a little. And what did you see? A soldier, she said. Ow. But also, a man who chooses to protect, even when he has every reason to destroy. He looked at her. She whispered, Next time I ask you to take it off, I hope it's not because of blood. He didn't answer. But he didn't look away. Outside, the stars burned quietly. Peace was still far away. Danger was rising, but something had changed. Two enemies had become allies. Two soldiers had become something more, and the fire inside. The fire of being human had burned bright enough for even an alien princess to see. The dark side of the moon Zenthra 9 was silent, cold, and forgotten. Long ago, humans and Zalthians had abandoned this small base after the First War. Now, someone had returned. Inside the base, Velatri warriors trained in silence. They moved like shadows, no sound, no mercy. Their leader, a tall figure in black armor, watched them from above. His name was Commander Vekros. He was once Terran, once noble. Now he hated both his own kind and the Zalthians. He believed only war could shape the future. He believed peace was the enemy, and now that peace had a face, Kailari, he said softly, staring at her image on a hologram, and her pet human. He closed his fist. Time to end them. Back on the joint station orbiting Elthora, things were tense. Though Elias and Kailari had proven the Velatri attack was real, many leaders still argued. Some wanted war. Others wanted to hide. Some thought Kailari had been tricked. Others said Elias was being used. The peace they fought for stood on thin ice. Kailari stood before her council once more. We cannot fight shadows, she said. We must face the truth. The Velatri are growing. They are no longer rumors. They are an army. One old Zalthian counselor spoke. If we chase ghosts, we risk everything. Leah stepped forward. Then we need to catch a ghost. Later. That night, Elias sat alone in his small quarters. His armor lay beside him, piece by piece. He cleaned it slowly, like a ritual. Then came a soft knock. He looked up. Enter. Kailari stepped in, dressed in a simple white robe. Her silver eyes reflected the dim light. You're still awake, she said. Soldiers don't sleep well. She walked closer. I saw you in the council. You didn't flinch when they questioned us. They always will. Kailari sat beside him. She looked at the armor on the table, then back at him. You plan to go after them, don't you? Yes, without permission. Yes. She took a breath. Then I'm going with you. He blinked. No. Yes. You could die. So could you. He looked at her. You're royalty. She leaned forward. And you're human. So what? They stared at each other then. Slowly, Elias gave a tired smile. You're impossible, and you like it. He chuckled. Unfortunately, 3 nights later, they left the station in silence. A small stealth ship, unmarked. Just the two of them, and a trace signal Elias had recovered from one of the dead. Velatri warriors' coordinates point to the edge of Zenthra's space, he said. Dead moon, cold, abandoned. Or not, Kailari said. They flew for 6 hours. No one followed. When they reached the moon, they saw it at once, an old Terran base reactivated. Lights inside, heat, movement. Kailari's breath caught. They've built an army here. Elias nodded. Let's break it. They landed in a dark crater and moved on foot. Elias led. He was in full armor, silent and quick. Kailari wore a scout suit, light armor with a psychic shield. As they moved through broken tunnels and silent halls, Elias marked guards. Kailari warned of traps using her mind sense. They were a perfect team. At last, they found the command center. a large room lit by red screens. One figure stood at the center, looking at a hologram of Elthera.Vakros. Elias raised his rifle. Move. But Vekros didn't turn. He laughed. I knew you'd come, Ward. You know me? I trained you. Elias froze. What? Ilari stepped beside him. You were Terran. Vekros turned. His face was old, scarred half metal. But the eyes were still human. I was your teacher, Elias, before I saw the truth. Ilias's hands tightened on the rifle. You taught us to protect peace. I lied. Kailari stepped forward. You've become what you swore to destroy. Vekros smiled coldly. You're the real danger, Princess. You and him. Of unity. If I destroy you, the alliance breaks. He pressed a button on his wrist. All around them, alarms began to scream. Doors slammed shut, and soldiers appeared. Elias pulled Kailari behind a console. Blaster fire lit the room. We're surrounded. She yelled, No, he said, eyes sharp. We're exactly where we need to be. He grabbed a small device from his belt, a disruptor bomb. He set the timer for 20 seconds. We blow the core. Shut the base down. Escape. Kailari nodded. Together he threw the device. The lights flickered. More fire. Vekros vanished. Into smoke, Elias and Kailari ran through fire and steel. Yet she protected him with a psychic shield. He protected her with lead and skill. They reached the ship as the moon. Base exploded behind them. A fireball lit the black sky. They didn't speak for a long time on the way back. Then Kailari said, Softly, he knew you. Elias nodded. He trained me. Before the war, before I saw the world his way. And now I see you. She looked at him. I see why peace is worth bleeding for. Back on the station, video of the moon base was shared with every leader, Terran and Zalthian. Elias's helmet cam showed. Vekros admitting his plan. There was no more doubt. Peace was not weak. It was a target, and now it needed warriors. To protect it, that night, Kailari stood on the viewing deck, stars shining all around. Elias walked up beside her. You should rest, he said. So should you. She looked at him. You could have left me behind. I couldn't. She stepped closer. Why? He hesitated. Then he said, Because when I'm with you, I remember who I am. She touched his chest plate. And who is that? Just a soldier, she smiled. Then take off your armor. He looked at her. Then he did. Not for war, not for wounds, but for her. The war did not begin with fire. It began with silence. The silence. The silence before a decision, after the fall of the Velatri base. Both human and Zalthian councils had no more doubts. The Velatri were real, dangerous, growing, and, worst of all, they had once been one of them. Peace was still alive. But now it needed protection. It needed people who were willing to bleed, not for war, but to stop it. That is how Captain Elias Ward and Princess Kailari found themselves. Standing at the front of a new alliance, not as leaders, but as living proof that two enemies could become more than allies. They could become hope. Are you sure you want to do this? Elias asked. Kailari stood beside him, wearing her silver armor. Her eyes burned with clarity. Do you mean fight? No, he said. Lead. She gave a small smile. You once told me you were more than a machine, more than a weapon, more than a symbol. Elias looked down at the battlefield map. The Velatri were moving fast, thousands of ships headed for Elthera and Earth. Twin targets. They want to destroy both worlds at once, he said. End the peace in one strike. Kailari nodded. Then we fight in one voice. The plan was simple and dangerous. They would split the Alliance fleet into two. Half would defend Earth. The other half, led by Kailari and Elias, would hold Elthara. The diplomatic heart of the peace treaty. If Elthara fell, it would be a symbol. A message that unity had failed. They couldn't let that happen. The skies above. Elthera burned. Velatri ships dropped from orbit like knives, cutting through clouds and air with terrifying speed. Their ships were fast, dark, silent. Each carried Soldiers who had no nation, no loyalty, only hate. But waiting for them were defenders of a new kind. Zalthian cruisers stood side by side with Terran destroyers. Human pilots and alien fighters flew in perfect formation. And at the center, in a black and silver command ship, stood the princess and the captain together. Elias stood at the front of the bridge. Status? Velatri fleet approaching. 10 minutes out, said a Zalthian officer. We're outnumbered. Doesn't matter, Elias said. Hold the line. Kylar stepped beside him. Broadcast our message. He nodded. Across every ship, every frequency, every fighter. One voice was heard, Kyalaris. This is not just a battle for Elthera, she said. This is a battle for who we choose to be. The Velatri want to turn us into monsters? We will show them what strength truly is. Her words were simple, calm, but powerful. The kind of voice that could make a pilot grip the controls tighter. That could remind a soldier why they fight not for glory, not for power, but for each other. The battle began with light. Blaster fire streaked across the sky. Shields flared. Ships exploded. Elias gave orders quickly, calmly. His mind was focused. His voice steady. Sector 5, fall back. Red Squadron, push forward. Kylari moved among the crew, offering support, giving clarity. Strengthening minds with her psychic link. They moved like one. Body dot, until the Velatri boarding pods landed. Steel tore through the command ship's hull. Dozens of enemy warriors poured into the corridors. Elias didn't wait. He grabbed his rifle, put on his helmet, and ran toward the sound of metal boots. Kylari followed, not as a princess, but as a warrior. They met the Velatri in the main corridor. Blades and blasters clashed. Fire and smoke filled the air. Elias fought with controlled fury. Every move was clean, deadly. Kylari fought like wind and light, her psychic shield glowing around her as she blocked attacks and pushed enemies back. But there were too many. A blast knocked Kylari off her feet. She crashed into the wall, blood running down her temple. Kylari, Elias shouted. He fought toward her, cutting down 2 enemies, grabbing her hand. I'm here, she whispered. We're surrounded. She looked up, blood in her eyes. Then we make our last stand count. But just as the Velatri moved in for the kill, a roar filled the air. The second wave of Alliance fighters had arrived. Reinforcements, led by none other than General Andros. A Terran hero once against the peace, he had changed his mind. He had seen what Elias and Kylari had done, and now he was here to fight for it. The tide turned. Velatri soldiers were pushed back. Their ships, caught between fleets, started to fall. Explosions rocked the skies. Smoke rose from the ocean below, but slowly, surely, the enemy broke and fled. Hours later, the sky was quiet. Elthera still stood, and so did the Alliance. Elias stood on the landing platform, removing his helmet. His face was bruised, cut, burned, but he smiled. Kylari walked toward him. Blood cleaned from her skin, her robe torn but proud. They looked at each other for a long moment and said nothing. They didn't need to. Later, during the victory ceremony, leaders from both worlds gathered. They cheered, they spoke, promised. But the people only watched one thing: the human soldier and the alien princess. They had stood as enemies. They had fought as allies. And now, they stood as something else. Not rulers, not warriors, but symbols. Living. Proof that humanity was not just about being strong. It was about choosing something better, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. That night, on the balcony of her chambers, Kylari sat under the stars. Elias joined her, his armor off, his hand resting gently near hers. Do you think they'll try again? He asked. Yes, she said. Hate doesn't disappear, but we'll be ready. She looked at him. Will you stay? He didn't answer right away. Then he reached out and took her hand. I already did, and the stars above watched them. Not as soldier and princess, but as 2 souls who had learned the hardest. Truth of all, that peace is not the end of war. It is the fight of a lifetime, and some hearts are strong enough to carry it together forever.